Hello, I am California and Texas attorney Michael Ehline. Everything that I do here on this channel is separate from my work as a personal injury attorney and done for a non-commercial purpose to teach you the principles of law that they don't teach you in law school. I'll teach you natural law, and I'll even teach you how to become a lawyer without law school. Make sure to always like and subscribe because you never know when the thought police are going to take down my channel. Hello, I am attorney Michael Ehline, as you just saw. I hope you like my new bumper. I'm always trying to mess around with the background and everything to make this thing look cool. So this is me. This is the new background. Hope you like it. Look, I'm going to try to get through this in 10 minutes or less if possible, so just bear with me. Sometimes I may look over at the screen, but it doesn't mean that I'm ignoring you. As you know, I am an attorney licensed in Texas and California, but a lot of you don't know one of my passions is Second Amendment and self-defense rights. Anything that has to do with self-defense, I love it. I think it's really, really important. As part of being a man, I was also a Marine. So I wanted to give you that backdrop, a little bit about my background so you kind of understand where I'm coming from. So what I want to teach you about today is a classic Leviathan versus Locke type of an argument where natural law and the monarchy comes in. Scotland was always at war with the English. They wanted their own Scottish king. The English wanted their own English king. The Scots wanted a Catholic. The Scots became oppressed because the king had superior technology. Ultimately, the king was able to conquer Scotland, and a lot of the Scots weren't happy about it. Hawaii, similar situation. So I want to get through the history really quick so you can understand what happened. This is State versus Wilson. This is a Supreme Court of Hawaii case. So what this means is that rather than go to the U.S. Supreme Court or the federal courts, Wilson handled this through the state of Hawaii, through the state courts, but it is a Second Amendment issue. Wilson was basically arrested for trespass. He had I believe it was a 45, or a 1911 model pistol in his waistband, I believe. And he was out with his friends, and he was arrested for trespassing, and basically argued that it was a violation of his Second Amendment rights because basically, Hawaii has no way to get a firearm. It's virtually impossible to get a concealed carry firearm, and they've basically tried to relegate it to being something like where you can only use it for your home defense. So there really is no way to use a firearm without getting in trouble like Wilson. So Wilson went ahead and fought it. And now what I want to do is get into you what the Hawaii Supreme Court did. The Hawaii Supreme Court basically ruled that ancient Hawaiian principles from the king, where the king passed a law that you couldn't have any weapons. So since the king passed this law, ancient Hawaiian aloha spirit is what really matters. And because Bruin talks about the history of a particular state and its firearms laws, that means that under ancient Hawaiian law, which has nothing to do with the U.S. Constitution, it was a monarchical system similar to what we'd all escaped. And we're going to get into that really quick and how flawed the Hawaii Supreme Court was here, but how it demonstrates one side, the Leviathan side, the side that we need an all-powerful monarchy, an all-powerful centralized system where all the power goes there and they have to think exactly like you. And things like the First Amendment and Second Amendment are impediments to these philosophies. That's why you see such a big push for censorship by Silicon Valley. They call it something like fact check, which they've even admitted is just an opinion. And we know that all the fact checkers are paid by the people seeking the opinions that they want. So it's basically a sham. So these people are using the same techniques to try and fight against the Second Amendment because that's very dangerous. Having an armed populace capable of resistance is extremely dangerous to a Leviathan type government. And this can be demonstrated with the ancient Hawaii Prince Kamehameha before he conquered the other rival warriors. And as you can see, there were rival princes after the main king. He was not able to take Kauai, though. So we'll talk about that later. But he was able to use cannons and superior weapons and Western technology and his friends in Europe to do that. So we have the kings allying themselves with the Europeans and taking on their technology and adopting their materialism, because materialism is really what this is about. It's not a race thing, and materialism is what really drives kings and pretty much anybody trying to make a living. You've got to have material things in order to survive, but some people become obsessed, and that's typically kings, because they want to They've got idle time. They want to prove to the other kings they're better, whatever. The Hawaiian kings had great access to land. The royal family was able to subjugate the tribes. As you can see, the original King Kamehameha, he threw people off cliffs and stuff like that. He was not a good guy by any stretch of the imagination. So ultimately, Kamehameha was able to subdue Kauai and Niihau, but they were like the Scots. I can only compare them to how the Scots were with the English. They were holdouts. And look, when you go to Kauai today, the people in Kauai, like, they have a lot strong, different type of an aloha spirit. These people are very stubborn. They don't like outsiders, even worse than the other islands, right? They definitely don't like haoles there. So at least that's what they call us. I hope I don't get banned for saying that word, but that is a word used by people who look Asiatic, who live on the island, for people who look like they're white. But their real war and battle should be with the original kings and queens of Hawaii, which we're going to get into right now. So Kaimualu was forced to become a vassal of Kauai, of King Kamehameha, of the king of Hawaii, because of the threats of the European military firepower that they could have unleashed on Kauai. The other attempts to invade the Kauai in that island area there were thwarted by other things like diseases, and there was another one where there was a storm, almost like the divine wind with the Japanese. They were saved by a storm, and it wiped out most of King Kamehameha's naval power that he had in the ocean coming across. Kauaians are like the Scots, right? So, and they still act that way today. I just wanted to kind of point that out because there's a lot of similarities between English monarchies and Hawaiian monarchies, and people need to understand that it's about a battle not between our races and our skin colors, but a battle over the Leviathan, or natural law. Where do our rights come from? A king, or do they come from an all-powerful creator, whoever that might be, or whatever that might be, that instilled with you certain unalienable rights? So that's where the battle is. So we can see that firepower was able to subjugate Kauai. Next. So we know that King Kamehameha used cannon to defeat the local warlords. A British subject named Young brought knowledge of naval and land battle strategies. So that's what gave him European technology, gave the king the power to subjugate his people. Very similar to how neighboring tribes of the Aztecs allied themselves with the Spanish to defeat the Aztecs. Everything they teach you in school is wrong about history. The Spanish, there weren't that many of them. They allied themselves with other Indian tribes to defeat. There was always battles between these tribes. So that's just normal. That's how it's always been. So anyone who argues that everyone's loyal to the king or anyone's loyal to one particular thing is wrong. Okay, so Young is the one who helped do that. So what ended up happening is Kamehameha II had, I think it was a brother who held joint power, and he was the caretaker of the god of war. So Kamehameha II kind of thought, okay, here's what I'm going to do. Because I don't want anybody interfering with my power. I'm going to abolish I think it's called the Kapu system. And that abolished the traditional religions of the island. So he did that to try to hold on to power, really. And he was also, becoming westernized, because the more he accepted the European style systems and just the material systems from the big bankers and stuff like that, which usually is concentration of power into a few hands. What ended up happening is he sort of adopted that, and Hawaii became more Christianized. So there was an incredibly horrible war, a horrific war. And that resulted in Kamehameha III reversed those pro-Christian laws and revived the hula and other prohibited cultural practices. Now, many of the newly converted islanders were outraged. Stay tuned. Episode 2 is coming up.